What's up guys, hope everyone is doing well. In this video I'm going to be going over some updates for Bitcoin, but nonetheless to go ahead and get it started here, first off on the 6-hour chart, again there is this lowermost from wick to wick support zone here, really the final thread here for Bitcoin to stay above if it wants to not go down to really first. After that I'm looking towards, as I've been saying, somewhere around like approximately like 88 to 87k. I ultimately, with regard to what I've been saying since roughly around here in November about Bitcoin, at this point I just want to see it hold really the base right here of this gradual upwards building price action that it has been seeing. Right now it doesn't particularly look the strongest. It looks as if it wants to go below this lowermost trend line of support here, although it could be potentially finding support here. It's gotten closer to this white EMA, the 200 EMA, which could end up as the next week goes on, or the next month, especially leading into next year, the beginning of the year, January. I believe it's somewhere around the 20th, the inauguration date for the American president, Donald Trump, being heavily friendly towards Bitcoin, pro cryptocurrency in general, could end up acting as a fundamental real world catalyst. Now, leading into that, Bitcoin could continue to go down. It could go up, it could go sideways, who knows, but that could end up acting as a potential catalyst to bring the price back up. Although there could be some sort of sell the news event where, again, as we get closer to it, we could see Bitcoin trail off here, maybe down to this 88k region, 87k region that I've been talking about. And then maybe after Donald Trump is inaugurated and finally takes administration, leading over the next 4 years, then maybe a few weeks or so after that actually ends up coming into effect, then we'll start to see Bitcoin move upwards due to the fact, again, I mean, it can't really be overstated. In America, there is the most friendly, most pro-Bitcoin, most pro-cryptocurrency administration in history coming into office, and I really just kind of doubt that it's not going to be good. I mean, regardless of what the price does, it's going to be good for the blockchain solution space in general, but I still definitely think that for technical reasons and fundamental real-world reasons that Bitcoin is going to continue to go far higher here. Outside of that, there are, on each of these indicators here, we can see they're all here. The RSI is building up. Same thing for the stock RSI. The MACD is also slightly building up here. The RVI is building up as well. So, I mean, there's some double bullish, perhaps better labeled as exaggerated bullish divergence forming that could end up further affirming the notion that it's going to find support along, again, the lowermost trend zone of support. Also, again, is aligning with the 200 EMA as well. Although, one thing I do want to point out here for this RVI, as long as this is staying in this lowermost region below 50, it's going to continue to have bearish volatility. The fact that right here we saw it break back above the 50 line and also the Bollinger Bands could be signaling, especially if it finds support along this median, this green line right here. This could be signaling that it's about to flip back up towards this upper region and then effectuate bullish volatility, which again could be factoring in why we're seeing this bullish divergence on every single one of these indicators as well. If we look here at the 12-hour chart, again, this was an important one that I went over in the last video. There's this descending yellow zone that, as I pointed out, we saw it's just was resistance here, then flipped into support around December 10th. Bitcoin went up to around 108k. So far it's come down and it's bottomed out roughly, well, solidly 2 times at this point, but whether or not this, where we are here currently for Bitcoin, is going to act as an actual bottom, a third bottom, is still yet to be confirmed. There's also, again, this purple range here from around 87.5 to around 91.3 that lined up with, again, the base of this that I was pointing out, of this gradual upwards movement that I was calling for Bitcoin to do going back to around mid-November at the beginning of this. So at best case scenario, best worst case scenario, I want to see that held in order just to maintain the integrity of this price action that I was saying was more likely than not to occur once Bitcoin had begun the current and most recent impulse. Also, if we look down here at our I went over this more in depth in the last video with respect to the zones being here at orange at 40, then pink here at the 30, going back over the last, or the current bull run for Bitcoin, going back to end of 2022 when Bitcoin is around 15 to 16K, and pointing out that this level of 40 has been quite important many times for support and bullish bounces. So far we are seeing, as I pointed out, Bitcoin's come down from 108K. Got a bottom here, second bottom, and this could potentially be the third bottom that flips it up. And it's still, like I've been saying, needs to break this vector zone here at around 101 to 102.5. Then it needs to continue to go upwards here to around 105.7, basically around 104 to 105.7. And then continue to go higher. Now, obviously, we could see something like this happen. Comes up to this first one, comes back down, reclaims this here as support, comes back up, comes back down. You know, there's many ways that it could, validate a bullish trajectory towards the upside, but these two zones I pointed out are very important. There's also this smaller one here that's formed at basically 96K, specifically from around 95.9 to around 96.5. That will first, before these upper two, need to be confirmed as broken and then held as support if it were to come back down. It also generally lines up with the 50 EMA here, the turquoise line, and the band generally also just going to be coinciding with each of these, really this $96,000 approximately price range for Bitcoin to get back above. So the fact that this seems to be holding up, I think, is a good notion to be seeing in terms of a bullish sentiment. But again, like I said, I mean, looking at the 6-hour chart, it doesn't particularly feel the strongest right now to me personally. And like I said, leading into next month, whenever the inauguration occurs, we could continue to see Bitcoin go down here. And then once it happens and then it goes up, or it could act out or play out a little bit differently. Also, the Bollinger Bands here are quite compressed. Last time we saw them, this compressed would have been back here when Bitcoin was breaking out above this yellow zone, coming back down, and then finding support moving upwards. So that could, again, be potentially, now the fact that these are compressing doesn't mean it's going to go up. It could definitely break towards the downside, but the fact that it's already come down to around 40 on the RSI doesn't have too much lower to go, although it definitely still does have plenty of room to go down towards the downside. But all things considered, this could potentially be shaping up for a good move towards the downside, or rather towards the upside. If we look here at the MACD, you can also see that the Bollinger Bands in this MACD are also highly compressed, and there is potentially shaping up currently a bullish divergence, but until this flips upwards into the blue or the bullish sentiment, that bullish divergence really isn't confirmed. And if I zoom out here just to show this purple region throughout this entire bull market so far for Bitcoin, this purple region was met going all the way back to the bottom in November 2022 here, right at the very, very bottom. It was basically met right here in March 2023. It was met here in August of 2023. Each of these being very, very crucial bounce and support zones. Also here in January 2024, another crucial bounce zone. And then many times you can see here throughout the most recent, this downtrend that we saw here that so far culminated in bullish price action. There are these multiple instances down here where it went far lower, just as we are doing right now. But again, given this value on the MACD of basically negative 1400, could potentially, especially if it confirms a bullish flip, could, along with those bullish divergences that I pointed out, along with this RSI, could be indicating that Bitcoin is not going to get too much lower here. Ultimately, it will hold this yellow zone and it will bounce higher and hopefully not be rejected at any of these vector zones here that I pointed out. Now, if you look here at this weekly chart, I wanted to go over this RVI and this uptrend, but with the opening of the current weekly candle, the RVI has gone below it. It's even broken below the Bollinger Bands. So initially I was going to go over this and how this could potentially, as we saw back here, there's support, 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 and it was sitting right at it before this new weekly candle. So I was saying I wasn't going to really talk about best case scenario that would find a bounce here. Right now, like I said, it is below it. But given this candle just opened up, there's still 6 days, 20 hours left. This could, especially if Bitcoin finds a bounce here and continues to go towards the upside, as the new candle opens up, this could actually change its sentiment to where once the new candle opens up, it'll actually find support along this to where we won't even see it below the support line. That's happened a few times throughout this bull market so far. Or what we could see is just a brief break of this, and then it just comes right back up as well. But as long as this doesn't get, like I said, on the 6-hour chart, as long as we don't see the RVI get entrenched down here, then we shouldn't see too much of a prolonged downside for Bitcoin. Outside of that, I want to compare, see this, really this triple bottom here, this type 2 W, where we saw Bitcoin bottom out 3 times, leading into, well, basically from July to September 2024, then moved up here from around 52.6 all the way to the current local high of around 108K. And I think this could potentially be somewhat fractally, in a sense, comparable to this 12-hour chart where we're seeing this triple bottom here. We're seeing an exaggerated bullish divergence here along an important zone on the RSI. It's where we could, again, like I said, we'll see this bounce here towards the upside. And again, this could be potentially comparable to past price structure, showing some self-similarity where we're seeing, again, this triple bottom here, or type 2W, that then moves towards the upside. If this is indeed a form of a W, then breaking above the neckline, so roughly here, going to be important. Really closing above 98.5, really psychologically is just going to be best to get back above 100K for many reasons, not just pertaining to the W pattern, if this is indeed here in the first place. We look here at the last chart, the 2-weekly chart, as I mentioned on a community tab post yesterday. This is a absolute bombshell of a chart, a technical nuke, as I called it. I'm going to go over it in multiple different ways. The first thing I'm going to do is cover up the 25 MA and the 12 EMA, so the green and the purple lines, and just go over the 47 MA, the white line, and the 10 EMA, the black line, where you'll see going all the way back to here, late August 2015, leading into late June 2016. We see this crossing here where we see the 47 go below the 10, and then the 47 cross back above the 10 in June. And this coincided right with, you can see, the end of the bear market, and then leading into the beginning of the bull market. We saw this happen here as well for around September 2019, leading into the May of 2020, as we saw this March crash here, the final local low of the bear market of this phase 1 of cycle 3. Then we see Bitcoin very shortly after move all the way up to 64K. More recently, of the current bull run, we saw the initial cross in October 2022, right as Bitcoin is bottoming out, leading all the way into the cross of the 47 back above the 10 here in February 2024, where we see again it's lining up this time around with the absolute bottom, very similar to this first time here, going back to 2015. And ever since then, we've seen Bitcoin going up initially. Even after the second crossover here, we saw Bitcoin move up to from 40 to around 75K correction, and now we're moving back up once more as well. So this will just be very positive going forward, assuming that it continues to repeat throughout the time span of Bitcoin's phases and its cycles over the next few years and the decades. Now, if we look here at the 25 MA and the 12 EMA again, we'll see something similar with these two, but the indication really comes a little bit earlier on, to where we see the crossing here of the 25 EMA, the green, below the 12 EMA purple right here around November 2014, then leads into here January, February 2016, where we see this first cross, and you'll notice this, that it really lines up with second half, the latter portion of really the final dump of a bear market. Outside of back here, there was this brief cross here after it already dumped here, and this second low here for this phase 1 of cycle 2, and then obviously we had the super cycle that is commonly referred to, leading into the high of 2013. But for here, this bear market and this bull market, phase 2 of cycle 2, again, see a fantastic indication to start buying. Final dump leading into the sideways accumulation zone here. Then the bull market finally picks up. See the same thing happen here, November 2018. Again, it lines up precisely with this final dump here, leading to around 3,200. Then we see the cross back above, so the 25 MA going above the 12 EMA. Right around July, as we saw this intermediate peak here at around anywhere from around $12,000 to $14,000. Then ultimately, obviously, after that, it went into the March crash and it dropped. I think it was somewhere like approximately 70%, yeah, around 72%. But ultimately, it did not go lower than the low back here. It got very close, but it did not go lower. So ultimately, as you started buying in right here, and then not sold right here, and then just held it to here, you still, especially if you continued buying, you would have been in great profit leading up to 64K. Most recently, we see here in March 2022, we see the 25 MA go below the 12, again, insinuating, or not insinuating, but it begins the onset of the final dump of the bear market. Then leading into August of 2023, we see the cross of the 25 back above the 12. Bitcoin goes from 25K to 75K, corrects down to 50K, and now has come up to 108K. Again, very, I mean, like I said, going all the way back to 2012, historically very accurate, in many cases precise indicator of seeing the indication coincide directly with the final dump of a bear market leading into the bottom, therefore marking you a good time to start accumulating in the accumulation zones as it leads into the bull markets. But really the most important thing is going to be comparing the 47 MA, the white line, to the 12 EMA, the purple line. And what you will see here is there's a first cross, for example, here in August of 2012, leading all the way to June of 2013. There's this first cross here, and then there's a second cross where it's denoted by the white. So the 47 MA going above the purple 12 EMA. And then the second one is right here, which precisely called the top of the super cycle, the second super cycle of cycle 2 at around $1,200 in December 2013 right here. If we look here at phase 2, cycle 2, again we see this first initial cross here, or interaction rather, and then we see, which you can barely see it, but there's one right here, and I'll zoom in just to show it. It's very, very, again, like I said, this is very, very precise. I mentioned that in the community tab post, but you'll see here this very short-lived cross, basically within, I mean, from December 4th, I mean, really actually from December 18th to January 1st, so roughly 13 days, 14 days, a 1 week to 2 week time period where you can clearly see this precisely lined up right at the very top of the 2017 all-time high at approximately 20K to end cycle 2 and begin cycle 3 for Bitcoin. Again, we'll see the same thing. We see this first interaction here, then we'll see the second interaction here, where zooming in, we can see that the initial cross above of the 47 above the 12 happened right really at the beginning of this parabolic move for Bitcoin, right when it was somewhere around 13, 14, 15K. And then we see the crossover happened right, basically, I mean, just right here within this zone right here, basically from April 12th to April 26th, again, precisely marking a 1 to 2 week period of time where we see the top set in. And if we zoom in, we can currently see that the current bull market has seen the first initial interaction here, and you can see that the 12 EMA as well above the 47 MA right now. And so far with the current, actually the new 2 weekly candle hasn't opened up yet. There's still roughly a week left. But I mean, we could see this, especially if Bitcoin ends up dumping a little bit more, especially if it goes down to, I mean, as low as I said, like absolute worst case scenario is that we see Bitcoin go from 108K all the way down to, I mean, anywhere from just approximately 60K, which would line up with the historical like 40 to 45% retracements in bull markets. As soon as Bitcoin starts to retrace significantly more than the upper bound limit of really 45% is when every time in past history it has signified bear market, with the exception of obviously the March crash, because this, as I've said, this right portion here is an accumulation period, and this right here would have been the bull market. So this 70% drawdown leading into the March crash does not qualify for the criteria that I was just mentioning. But overall, again, as I was saying in that post, this will further, along with the pi cycle indicator, this is an AB extra indicator based upon moving averages that will further validate the pi cycle indicator. Let's say this here, the 47 MA and the 12 EMA are flashing right at the same time, or just very closely along with the pi cycle indicator sometime next year. I think more closer to around at earliest March, maybe pushing June, July, August, September, we'll see Bitcoin and altcoins start to top out. But if this 47 MA and 12 EMA flashes at the same time with the pi cycle indicator, or they flash, within, let's say the pi cycle indicator flashes in the, let's just say the second week of June, and then we see the 47 MA and the 12 EMA flash in the third, fourth week of June. So there's about a 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, maybe at longest difference between the flashing of the indicators. That will be quite a strong indication, of my view, that Bitcoin has topped out, or it's very, very close to topping out, because a lot of times when we'll see certain indicators like this, whether it's the pi cycle indicator or not, it typically, a lot of the times there's been some more upside. For example, we go to 2021, we see that it flashed here, then there was still this wick right here. For example, when the pi cycle flashed, the wick high was at 61.2, then the next candle wicked all the way up to 64.8. So it's not always going to be precise, obviously, as I've gone over the pi cycle here, as you see, and the specific inputs that I use. Again, 458, 310, 354, 111, and the time interval needs to be on the day. This is as precise as I've been able to get it, predicting the high and the lows since 2013 of April. But really, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's precisely predicting it every single time, as long as you have an indicator, but better yet, a set of indicators that are all flashing top signals within a 1 week, 2 week, really more broadly speaking, within a month period of time, when Bitcoin or any other asset for that matter is topping out. That's really, I mean, that's all you can ask for. Trying to sell the absolute tops, the peaks, and trying to buy the absolute bottoms and lows is just not particularly ideal. I mean, you're looking to be essentially perfect in your investment and trading execution, which is, again, I mean, it's not really realistic given the nature of the reality and the world that we live in. So, I mean, selling, approximately $5,000, maybe $10,000 lower than the actual high is still a massive win, especially, if you bought Bitcoin here back at around, let's just say around $4,000 back in 2018, 2019, and then you rode it all the way up and you decided to sell it, let's just say $60,000. You missed out on like $4,000. You missed out on it going to 69K, but you still had an amazing profit nonetheless. But that wraps up everything that I wanted to go over and update in this video. So as always, none of this is meant to be financial advice, but all that being said and everything gone over, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Now won't die, see you forever, start to